And I think that was a really powerful thing. I'm getting emotional. I didn't struggle the way that I did and in the certain things that I did. And in that way, then I felt like a failure. If I could go back and tell myself something before I became a mom, I think it would be, hello friends, welcome to the Motherhood series. I'm so excited for you to be here. Just a few gentle reminders off the top. Please be kind and gracious with each other in the comment section, as well as to whoever's in the video. This is not an easy thing to get in front of the camera and to talk about something as vulnerable as motherhood. As well too, not all of us are expert communicators and we may misuse words or misuse language, so please give people the benefit of the doubt. As well, this is a snippet and a small portion of their story. It is not the full story. So with all that being said, please enjoy this video. We're just gonna do this. Here goes nothing. So motherhood for me started with a little bit of a delay. We did struggle with infertility for a couple of years before we were able to have kids. And then when we did get pregnant, it was twins. So it was this waiting, bam! All the blessing we thought. We were so excited. We were, oh my goodness, this is just going to be amazing. And then I got very sick with my pregnancy. And I thought that was going to dissipate, like morning sickness, throwing up all the time, had to be hospitalized for dehydration kind of thing. I thought that was going to go away after, the first trimester, because that's what everybody says. And for me, it didn't. It lasted my entire pregnancy. I had crazy food aversions. I had crazy smell aversions. There was foods that I could eat one day and then the next day I couldn't. Me and my husband were expats at the time, so we were living on our own. Didn't have the support of close friends or family with us. There was times when I couldn't even raise my hands above my head because I would throw up. Just weird things like that. Even now, still some days when I brush my teeth, I gag. Even 11 years later, that still has an impact on me. That was that. And then went right into just having twins. I have to say we were very, very blessed that we didn't have too many complications other than hyperemesis in the pregnancy or in the birth. We did have a short stint in the NICU, but for the most part, the kids were healthy-ish. We, had allergies and asthma and things like that. But on the grand scheme of things, it could have been a lot worse just with twin pregnancies and what can all go wrong with twin pregnancies. I felt like because of that, I really did a lot of research. I did on the birth, on the pregnancy. And I feel like after they were born, I was a little bit like, oh, dang. I should have read more about this part. I think looking back at the pregnancy and the journey to get there, I think it was a little bit of a proving ground to having twins because it didn't get any easier living abroad and having twins. It was wild. It was exhausting. It was a lot worse than hyperemesis. Before I became a mom, I think I was very unrealistic in my idea of what motherhood was. I had this very weird view of it, and I think after going through infertility for so many years, I had really built it up and really hyped it up in my head as if it was going to be this ultimately fulfilling, truly magical thing. And I don't know if it was the influence of TV or commercials or what we see, snippets of what we see other people's lives looking like, or it was just quiet and it was calm and it was gentle. That was not my experience of motherhood once I got into it at all. It was messy and chaotic and loud and scary and rough at times. I had this image of babies always being so gentle, and sometimes they can get really violent. The amount of times that I got hit in the face or hair pulled or smacked around. I mean, babies can be violent. It's not as gentle or serene, I suppose, as I had imagined it. So yeah, it was very different than what I thought it was going to be like. I think looking back, I always imagined that I was going to come at motherhood with the same energy that I had before I became a mom, and I didn't quite realize the level of exhaustion and sleep deprivation and trying to heal physically while trying to take care of children, that early stage of motherhood. I didn't quite realize what that was going to take. I always just imagined it that, I'd have the same amount of energy that I have now. That was not the case. I have never experienced exhaustion like that, and I think having twins, I've never experienced that exhaustion since, even after having my third child. That was, no. I think my mom and my grandma, the matriarchs of my family, really had the biggest influence on me as a mother, although I can't say that I knew that straight away. That's perspective that I think I've gotten since I've had kids. I feel like growing up, I didn't have as much respect as I should have for what motherhood is and what it takes and the role of a mother, and especially my mom being a stay-at-home mom. I think I was a little bit disrespectful to that, and I obviously fully regret that now, because I too became a stay-at-home mom and was a stay-at-home mom for almost over 8 years. And I learned that it is no way a walk in the park, nor is it something that just anybody can do, nor is it something that should be disrespected, which obviously is full circle to why we are creating this series in the first place. So yeah, I think my mom and my grandma definitely taught me the most about motherhood. I think just watching them and the way that they behaved, I have to say my mom was very patient for having 7 children, and our house was always chaotic and always loud and always wild, and I feel like she just quietly went about and did her thing, and she raised us all. She was a stay-at-home mom for a lot of those years, and as a child, I didn't understand why she would want to be a stay-at-home mom or look down on that for some reason. I didn't understand the gravity of what she was doing until I have now become a mom myself, and thank goodness that is what happens with age, right? We get wiser as we get older, hopefully. I'm especially grateful for her presence in my life and for the sacrifices that she made in order to raise us kids and to have a place where I knew mom was always going to be home. I knew mom was always going to be there. I think my idea of being a perfect mom or the best mom was somebody who was always patient, somebody who was really fun, somebody who had a ton of energy. I'm laughing at this because I'm none of those things. I feel like I ran into the ground as I became a mom, like this infertility and hyperemesis through my pregnancy, and then a twin pregnancy and living abroad and not having a strong support network. I feel like I didn't launch off with high energy and being my best self. I started out crawling through the battlefield, it felt like. I definitely have not become the mother that I thought I was going to. I can say that I think seasons of motherhood are different, and I feel like now that my kids are getting older and they've grown a lot and we're entering into a different season because they require a lot less just physically from me, that I am being a lot more energetic and I have can be a lot more involved in all those other things. But when I first became a mom, no, I was definitely not the mom I thought I was going to be. When I first became a mom, the biggest players in my support network was my husband and some of my coworkers at the time, a few friends that I had. Like I said, we were expats at the time, so we didn't necessarily have a super close supportive network. After we moved home, moved closer to family because it was too hard. It was too hard to do it on our own. It was kind of moving home then that my family and a few close friends have kind of become my support network, especially as they've moved into becoming mothers as well. I feel like motherhood has changed me personally a lot. I don't feel a lot like my old self in most ways. I feel like I've changed almost entirely since becoming a mom. My kids had medical issues and allergies and asthma and things that require routine and regular maintenance, and for me to be on a schedule, to me to be organized, and that's not who I was before. I was very, we'll see how it goes, it'll be fine, everything will work itself out. I would do things as I felt them. I did things I realized based a lot on feelings. If I felt really good about doing it, then I would do it. If I kind of lost interest in it, it doesn't matter, it's not important. Things like that. And when I became a mom, I couldn't operate that way. So I feel like it changed just the way that I operate. I think the gravity of this situation brought out a seriousness in me, or brought me to reality in a lot of ways. I think oftentimes in those early months, sometimes the thought of it would scare me so much, to think about the fact that these 2 little helpless things were relying on me to keep them alive. And the weight of that sometimes was so scary and so overwhelming that it was like I couldn't just bow out or take a day off or call in sick. Couldn't do that. I had to face the situation every single day, no matter how tired, no matter how exhausted. And I think that really helped tether me down to reality a little bit better than before having kids, for sure. Because nobody had ever needed me to that level or to that extent before. And it was a little scary. Just not being sure in and of myself if I could rise to that occasion. And I did over and over again. And that's definitely something that I'm really proud of, and not that I surprised myself, but just that I was capable of a lot more than I ever thought I was capable of. Motherhood changed the way that I saw myself, in that I think as a kid I was always very outwardly very confident, but inwardly very unconfident. And I projected a lot of confidence, but I was not confident whatsoever. And I think motherhood, in a lot of ways, slowly built up my inner confidence in the fact that every day there was things that were hard. Every day I had to face challenges. Every day I had to face things that my brain and my mind told me, you can't do this. Like, this is too much. This is overwhelming. And even though my brain was telling me that, my body was telling me that, I had to do it anyways, and I did. And I think that slowly over time just really grew into this inner knowledge that when push comes to shove, when it's time, like, I can do it. I have something inside of me that's prepared to fight and to survive and to get through. And that confidence, that deep-rooted confidence, has helped me time and time again when there have been things that have been so overwhelming. And I just think back to those early days and I think, no, if you could get through that, if you could do that when you thought you had nothing left in you and you did it anyways, like, you have the ability to survive. And I think that was a really powerful thing. I'm getting emotional. It was a really powerful thing that I'm really thankful that I was pushed to that limit, almost in a way, to know that it's there. When push comes to shove, when it's survival time, I have that ability to survive, and that is really empowering. And I think it built up a lot of inner confidence that I didn't necessarily have before motherhood. I think motherhood changed the way that I see my own mom in a huge way. Like I said before, growing up, I had this weird disrespect for anything domestic, as we used to call it in our house. I'm not 100% sure where that came from, funny enough, because my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so I have a lot more respect for my mother and a lot more respect for what she did, raising 7 kids, being a stay-at-home mom for a long time, and then going back to work when us kids got a little bit older, and having gone through that experience myself of being a stay-at-home mom and then returning back to work. Like, I'm going to do a whole nother video on that because that was something, let me tell you. I think I have a whole new appreciation and love and respect for what my mom did and the sacrifices that she made for being at home, and even with us kids being so disrespectful to her for that. Like, oh, I cringe inside so hard. I think I never understood growing up the power of presence and the power of consistency. And I think my mom being a stay-at-home mom and just always being there, always being at home, always doing the same things, I think in a lot of ways I thought was boring, or I thought was repetitive or routine, and who needs routine? Me, I need routine. As a grown-ass adult, I need routine. And I think growing up now and having kids of my own, I'm so thankful for that safety and security of knowing that my mom was always going to be there, that she was always going to be home when we got home from school. There was usually probably going to be some fresh baked buns or fresh baked bread. You know, Mondays were always the days that she baked bread, and those were my favorite. You come home and the whole house smelled like bread. And I didn't realize how comforting that was until I became an adult, and I realized that I had to create that routine and that stability for myself as well, because that's comforting and that's safe, and that's a beautifully rich thing that I am very blessed that I got to grow up with. So I've definitely seen my mom differently, and I definitely respect what she did and the way that she chose to raise us way more than I ever did when I was younger. Like, I just had no capacity to understand what she did and why she made the choices that she did, but now I'm so incredibly grateful that she did. Becoming a mom has changed the way that I see the community and the people around me in a few different interesting ways. I think I experienced postpartum depression after both of my pregnancies, actually. And I think it created a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of postpartum anxiety. And I think that changed the way that I saw my community and the world around me in a lot of ways. I think before I was a very open person. I wanted to explore. I wanted to have new experiences, meet new people. I was really I saw the good in things and I saw the good in people, and it was really open. I feel like after having kids, I started to close off a little bit more. I started to become weary of the world around me. I think I started to see more dangers, right? This need to protect my kids produced in me, and I think just the anxiety that I was experiencing made my community and my world get a lot smaller. I saw the world differently. I think I saw the danger and the pitfalls around me a lot more than when I did before. Because it was only myself I had to worry about, and there was nothing bad was ever going to happen, right? Whereas now, since having kids, it's like all I see is the bad things, right? It's like, oh my goodness, this could happen, and this could happen, and this could happen, and part of that's just the anxiety talking, but also the need to, I feel like, to protect my children. I feel like I value community a lot more now, crave it more than ever, but at the same time, it's small to me because I need to keep it small. I see people differently now as well too. So like before I had kids, when I was at the grocery store or something like that, and a kid was having a tantrum, I had all these judgments, I had all these thoughts like, ooh, the mother should have done this, or, what's going on with that, or why didn't the mom do this? And now it's like, there's like a part of me that's like, my heart goes out to her, and it's like, just walk around. I tell my kids, that's okay. Their mom's going to sort it out. Their mom's going to deal with it. Don't worry about it. You don't have to stare. Things like that. It's just, there's a different energy that I bring to when I see other moms out and about with their kids, or I see other things that before I would have had, all sorts of judgments for. But now it's like, I get it. No. And as well, too, seeing other things happen to other kids. Like, I have a really hard time. I can't watch movies or content or things like that where kids get harmed. That's a no-go for me. That's going to impact my thoughts and my emotions for months to come, It's something I won't be able to get out of my head. Like, I'm just very vulnerable to that stuff now, whereas before I don't feel like I was as sensitive to it. But since becoming a mom, I can't watch content where other kids get hurt. I can't handle it. One of the hardest lessons I have had to learn, this one's probably going to make me emotional, is that it's okay to not be good at something. And I didn't realize before becoming a mom that I was such a perfectionist, but I think I need to be really good at something right off the bat without even trying, or I'm not just going to try it all. I'm just not going to give it any effort. And I see that in my kids sometimes, which I'm like, oh man, that's me. I'm totally like that. Like, well, where does that even come from? But I think with something as big and as huge and as important, like motherhood, I think I really struggled with not what I perceived in my mind, not being good at it, making mistakes, having to learn constantly and constantly feel like I'm in a position where I'm learning as I go. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I think for me, I had to learn the lesson that everybody's journey of motherhood is incredibly different, and we all come at it from a different place. We all were raised differently. We all have different expectations of ourselves. We all have very different children. We all have different birth stories. And I think because I felt like I struggled so much with it, I was really excited for some other moms in my circle when they became moms, because I felt like, oh, I'm finally going to have like a group that understands. And they didn't struggle the way that I did and in the certain things that I did. And in that way, then I felt like a failure. I felt like, oh my goodness, everyone else around me is like doing this motherhood thing and they're rocking it. Like they're not struggling. And I think for me, I had to learn that everybody's story is different and everybody's struggles are different. And that doesn't make me any better or any less of a mom because of it. And that was a hard one to learn, and something that I still have to like separate all the time, because seasons of motherhood change constantly. And I feel like as soon as I start to get my rhythm and start to get momentum going and start to like, okay, kind of got a handle on things, we're rocking pretty good, we're functioning well, and then all of a sudden something changes, right? My kids are growing up, they're changing, they're evolving, so am I as a person and as a mother, and there's new challenges that in every season of motherhood that I have to adapt to, and it's a lot for me to deal with, especially because I struggle with not being really good at something straight off the bat. And that's an expectation that I have had to learn to let go of in myself, that I am not going to be good at this, and there are things I'm going to struggle with, and there are things that I'm going to mess up royally, and that's okay. Even though it feels huge and important because it's motherhood and it's my kids, and I feel like I'm going to screw them up for life, but I'm going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And that's okay. I think something I'm really proud of in my motherhood journey is that I feel like I've provided a space for my kids to feel like themselves. They have really big personalities, and they're really, maybe that's just part of them and who they are, but I also feel like them having a safe space to be able to develop those big personalities and be who they want to be and try new things and explore different interests. Like, I'm really excited and proud that they feel safe enough to do that in the environment that we've cultivated, and I'm really proud of that. If I could go back and tell myself something before I became a mom, I think it would be that what you're about to go through is big. It's going to change you. So give yourself some grace. It's a big, big thing, and it's going to take time. So be gentle with yourself, and that you're strong enough to do it, that you can do it. And you have a strength that you didn't know you had, but you have it. It's in there. You're stronger than you think you are.